Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Tessa Shepperson, and this is the next in my series of little updating videos telling you what I'm doing on landlord law and generally some of my thoughts about the Renters' Rights Act and how it's going to work. So I'm recording this video on the 16th of March. So what have I done so far? Well, I've been updating the articles on landlord law, and a big article that I've updated is the pets article. Now, this is a very long article which goes into all sorts of details about for landlords about whether they should accept pets and what they need to do. This article has always been open access, so I've continued that. So if you're not a landlord law member, you will still be able to read it. It is available for everyone. So that's one big thing I've done. Now, last time I told you that I had done a page with all the grounds for possession. I have amended that because what I didn't put on there is quite a few of the grounds. You need to give a notice first in your tenancy agreement, otherwise you can't use it. Now, this is quite important. In fact, it's very important actually, because if you want to use any of the grounds, like the new student ground, new student eviction ground, or for example, if you're providing accommodation for your employee and you don't want it to be permanent, you need to have this notice in your tenancy agreement, otherwise you won't be able to use those grounds. So I've noted that there are other grounds as well where you have to do that. Those are the main ones for sort of private landlords, but there are others that you may need. So that's there. And then I had a message on our forum for someone who was asking about guarantees, and I thought, oh God, I better do a new form of guarantee. And as I was doing my research, it occurred to me that, of course, we got a big problem with guarantees after the Renters' Rights Act comes into force on the 1st of May, because there is this long-standing rule. It comes from a very old 19th century case, which says that if the contract which a guarantee is based on is changed, then that sort of voids the guarantee and it's no longer enforceable. So what that means is if the rent goes up, or if there's different people living in the property, then the guarantee will not be enforceable. So I had to think about how we could get around this, and I did a bit of research. And it looks as if you make it absolutely clear in your guarantee that the guarantor is aware that the rent will go up and accepts that, then the guarantee should survive. So I drafted very carefully a guarantee in those terms. I've also made it fairer to the guarantor as well, because I think a judge in court proceedings is more likely to uphold a guarantee that tries to be fair to the guarantor than one that clearly doesn't. So that's there for members to use. And the nice thing about it is that you can use it now, and it is also suitable for use with common law tenancies such as company lets and things. So that is the landlord law form of guarantee. So I then started doing some more work on end of tenancy issues, and I've drafted up a new checklist. I've got these checklists on landlord law which sort of go through in detail what you need to do at different stages of a tenancy. And the last checklist used to be called end of tenancy and renewals, because we don't have renewals anymore, or we won't do after the 1st of May. So it's just called end of tenancy checklist. And that's sort of going through the different ways that the tenancy can end and what you need to do and where you can find more information about it. So, for example, cash for keys, I do a bit on that, but I also give a link to quite a detailed frequently asked question that we've got on how you deal with cash for keys, and that we've got a deed of surrender that you can use as well. So that's the end of tenancy. And then the next thing I probably need to think about is the new landlord law tenancy agreement, because I'm going to have to draft up a new tenancy for the post 1st of May period, because all tenancies will have to change. So I'm waiting for the government to issue the final version of their guidance on the information that needs to be provided. I mean, the government provided draft regulations, but I quite like to see the final version before I start adapting my tenancy agreement. And I'd also like to see the form that landlords of existing tenants need to serve on their tenants by the 31st of May. And as you will hopefully know, provided you serve that notice on existing tenants, you won't have to issue them with any other paperwork. But you do have to serve that notice because you can be fined if you don't. So I've been sort of doing a bit of preliminary thinking towards my tenancy agreement, and I've also updated the procedures because in October I drafted a load of procedures which are sort of guides and procedures for tenants to follow in particular circumstances. So I've got one for if they want to apply to keep a pet. There's one if they want to report a repair. There's one if they don't think they can afford to pay the rent, so it's an arrears procedure. And I've also done one for tenants if they want to end their tenancy, where I've given them a draft notice to quit that they can use. Because although the Act says very clearly that landlords can't prescribe the form of notice to quit that tenants can use and say that they'll only accept it in a certain format, there's nothing to say you can't give them a draft that they can use if they want to, which might be quite useful for tenants if they're not quite sure what to say. So I've drafted up those procedures, and if you are issuing tenancies, it's a good idea to incorporate these procedures because it basically generally make things work smoother. And in the Renters' Rights Act period, after the 1st of May, it'll perhaps give you a little bit more control over what happens. I've explained all this in a blog post on the Landlord Law blog, so if you're interested, you can go and read about it. And there are some other blog posts talking about my thinking about what's going to happen and how things are going to work out after the 1st of May. So that's my little update. Thank you for watching, and I'll speak to you again soon. Thank you.